So, Jim, let's go to you. And I guess, John, I don't know. Do you describe that as the WordPress thing? Is that a worm, or is it really just they're going out and scanning and compromising websites?
I don't think, yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's not worming.
Yeah, it's
like
not
once
worming.
they compromise a machine, it's not trying to find others. It's more,
Right.
as far as I know, one actor,
Yeah.
a
We
small
actually
set
don't
of
see
actors.
that many worms anymore. It's usually they're getting them under a central control botnet and then commanding them to do things that it may be recruiting activity. And so, Jim, I'll pass it over to you here, and maybe you can tell us about some of this backdoor activity.
Yeah. This one it came to our attention over at the Internet Storm Center last Thursday or Friday. Johannes Ulrich posted a handler's diary about it. Yeah, we talked about shell shock when it first happened several months ago. I don't know, when was that? September, October, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we talked about at the time was, that it's quite possible that there are, these appliances out there that might be vulnerable, and that's what we have discovered. The reader sent in an email saying he had noticed some stuff, and Johannes did some more investigation, and it turns out that it looks like somebody has created a shell shock worm that is looking for unpatched versions of a particular network storage device. It's QNAP NAS devices that they have Bash installed on them, and there has been a patch out since October, I believe, sometime. Mm-hmm. But if the administrators left them configured and unpatched, and configured to have network access, somebody out there created a worm that is going around looking for these, exploiting the particular authlogin.cgi script, setting DNS, the DNS server, to one of Google's public DNS servers.
Mm-hmm.
The thought is perhaps they're trying to get something that's a more complete recursive DNS server, and or trying to avoid logging. If you're using your own DNS server, you wouldn't get these queries logged, whatever. It installs an SSH server on port 26. It creates a new admin user. Mm-hmm. It modifies the auto run script so that it survives a reboot. It puts some malicious CGIs on there, and then it downloads QNAP's patch for the shell shock vulnerability, applies it, reboots it, so that nobody else can get in using the same exploit behind them. And then it appears that the primary purpose, once they've spread to all the QNAP NAS servers they can find, it looks like primarily they're doing click fraud to a particular advertisement network, Juice ADV, and they have a particular user ID and refer. So I suspect that the folks at the advertising network aren't going to, it's not going to be successful in getting money for the bad guys anymore, because they're already aware of what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of interesting, that is, we kind of thought maybe somebody would try to worm this vulnerability, create an exploit that could be used as a worm to propagate from device to device. And here we are a couple months after the initial push, and there are still unpatched devices out there, and somebody's finally actually created a worm out of it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, this is a classic example of the Internet of Things that are being connected or managed in I'll call it less than acceptable way. And
yeah, well, we talked about it at the time. There's so many of these devices out there. I mean, we talk about it all the time. These devices that are not necessarily well managed, or folks don't know when when there are patches available for them and don't necessarily apply them in a a timely fashion. And this is just another one of those devices. Yeah. How many people know that their NAS device runs Linux and Bash on the backside
Right.
and needs to be updated?
Right, absolutely. Well, and I'd venture to guess, you mentioned earlier, you were speculating a little bit about the reason they configured the DNS to point toward, Google's DNS servers. I'd venture to guess that for the most part, devices like this that have been exposed to the internet are probably not being managed particularly well, may not have even had any DNS server configured on them, and they may be just simply doing that as a matter of simplicity rather than checking to see if it has good DNS. Just go and configure it the way you want. But your point.
Yeah, one of the other articles that after Johannes posted it, it got picked up in some of the other press, and one of the other articles speculated that that they have some sort of a built-in DNS set of DNS servers they go to that is not complete, and so maybe to get to places they wanted, maybe that's why they were setting this, but it's not entirely clear yet.
Okay, well, nevertheless, good story. I think that kind of is another classic example of this devices being connected and really need to be prepared a little bit better to be connected to the internet. And I guess are there really reasons that network attached storage needs to be exposed to the internet? I'm not really sure about that. Now, I guess for folks that need to try to detect this, they may not even be aware of these devices on their enterprise network. I guess that you could sort of scan on port 26. There aren't going to be too many other services there, I would expect, right?
Yeah, well, that would be one way to look for SSH servers on port 26, or you can look for the particular CGI script on the web interface. Several ways of looking for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, because ultimately there is the potential of this. But if this really is worming, it could potentially spread into an enterprise network and have that affect an enterprise network as well. So, all right, thank you, Jim. Very good.